Are you having a hard time developing the habits and behaviors to be successful? Do you want accountability but don't know how? Stay tuned for tonight's show. You're not going to want to miss it as we talk about accountability.
Our goal is simple: to help you achieve the dream and vision you first had when you thought about starting a business. We're here to make growing your business less complicated. There are building blocks to build a sustainable business. We promise to seek them out and address them all. The Better Your Business Show starts now.
Can't hear you. Oh, now I can.
Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Better Your Business Show. I'm Natalie, your host, and we have the fabulous coach for business, Miss Shanna Mavis.
Hey, Natalie.
Hey, girl.
Okay, so, hey, everyone. So, Natalie, we were just talking about how it feels like a reunion. Because we haven't been here in 2 weeks, I think is what it is for the show.
Oh,
because we met 2 days ago, right?
Yes.
It's not like we haven't seen each other or talked to each other, but I think it's because it's been so long between shows with the special editions that it was just like, well, hey,
that makes sense because I was excited to see you. And it didn't feel like 2 days, that is for sure.
That's funny. So long.
Yeah, it's been so long. Yes, but I am excited for tonight's show on accountability. I think this is such a great topic. I love this topic so much too because I feel like people have a misconception on what it means to be accountable. So that's something that I'd like to kind of get clear on the table tonight too, is what does it mean to be accountable? Do you really want accountability, and are you being accountable? And so I'm excited because we have Mark Chavis here tonight who'll be joining us, who's been coaching for 11 years, and he talks a lot about accountability. And so we're going to be hitting hard on that.
Yeah, and he said he's going to hold us accountable already. So
I know.
I'm kind of like, okay, well, yeah, I want to bring him to the front, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So true.
Okay, let me go ahead and bring him in.
All right.
You're making me laugh already.
Uh-oh. Yeah, we're definitely having a good time. Welcome to the show. We are very excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Awesome. So, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit accountability. I did want to start with, sharing a little bit about your background, how you got into coaching. And then I did, after that, want to start off the definition of accountability, because I do think that's important. But tell us a little bit about you first.
Okay, so I am an author. I wrote a book called Remembering Your Spirit, and I'm also a coach. I've been coaching for about 11 years now. I went through Tony Robbins training, so I have that background. I did strategic intervention training. So it's just another fancy word for coaching, right? But basically it's helping people to shine a spotlight on the obstacles that get in the way of where they are and where they want to end up. And just not really giving advice, but just helping them to build strategies to get there. What does that road look like? What's in the way, on that road? And how can we chip away at that block or that boulder that's in the way so that you can actually get where you eventually want to go? So that's pretty much it. I do workshops and seminars in public speaking, and I also have a podcast called thisissource.com. I'm a co-host, and I have there's another host called Agris Blabux, and we have a great time talking about empowerment and healing and all sorts of great topics related to that. Spirituality. It's fun. We have a lot of great conversations.
Well, that's actually how we met. Do you remember how we met? I don't even know what it was in. You had put a post, I think, in a group.
Uh-huh.
And I responded to it because you said, I'm looking for people to be on my This Is Source podcast. And I thought of my friend Denise. I don't know if you guys ever connected. And then I interviewed somebody else that was
Nate,
yes.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the podcast has been amazing at networking with people that I probably would have never met otherwise. It's just amazing to be able to have these conversations. And I think people really appreciate listening in on podcasts. It's a wonderful medium to be able to carry conversations that people like the both of you and I would normally have, but now people can listen in on those conversations. So it's great. And it takes away a lot of the, I don't know, fluff and like trying to perform and just literally just having, this is life. This is what I'm passionate about. What are you passionate about? Let's talk about it for 30 minutes. And, people appreciate that, I think. So,
Yeah,
a lot of
definitely.
fun.
Well, I mean, I am a performer, Mark.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I took a personality test, and that's what it told me. I was a performer. So,
I
I
can
mean,
see
I
that.
know not everyone.
I can see that. Yeah, that comes through for sure.
I am amazed though that you guys, and I know we'll get to accountability, I promise, but it floored me when you said 4 days a week, that you guys are airing 4 days a week. That's a lot. And we can talk about accountability with that even, because
Uh-huh.
I know it's a lot for Natalie and I for the
Yeah,
one night a week.
yeah,
And then you guys have quadrupled that and have been doing it for a while. And so
yeah.
how are you, how are you continuing to make it so I mean, it's sustainable. You've got
Mhm.
a system in place. I understand that, but
Right.
I'm curious. That's amazing.
So, you bring up a good point because there's, I'm an idea person. And I love, doing new projects. I've been an entrepreneur since I was a little kid, right? So I was always up to something and I have tons of ideas. Um, the podcast itself is something that I feel that has really taken off in the sense that we're able to not only, work on recording 4 shows a week, but also, keeping it sustainable, like you said, and also keeping that level of passion. And to be honest with you, we would probably even do more if we weren't involved in other projects. But really, what it comes down to is just that sheer passion that's like fueling the entire thing. And we made this pact when the two of us came together and decided to do the podcast, that we were like, listen, if we're having fun and we're enjoying ourselves and we're talking about things that we're passionate about and we're bringing in guests that we're interested in what they have to say, then it's not like everything else will come second, and so we're like, we get pumped when we bring in new guests and we're like, and then we're going to talk about this, and and it just grows from there. It's crazy because you bring a guest on, you connect with them, and then it grows into like 3 other things. So
Yeah.
you don't want to stop that momentum, like, let's just keep doing it. Let's go. So it's great.
It is a lot of fun.
So,
So
did I
let's,
answer the question?
yeah.
All right, good. I don't want to cut anyone off.
Let's dive into accountability. We'll hold ourselves accountable. Dive into accountability, right? So,
Okay, good.
the first thing that I wanted to talk about was, so I looked up the definition of accountability, and so it says the fact or condition of being accountable, and then it says responsible. So I thought that was very interesting. An acceptance of responsibility for honest and ethical conduct towards others, and then taking responsibility for your performance and business outcomes. So that was the definition of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think so. Accountability, to break it down into really simple terms, is just doing what you say you're going to do, right? So I have this idea. I want to put together a podcast. Okay, it's just an idea, but are you really passionate about it? Is it something that really excites you? Why do you want to do it? Like, what's the why behind this project? And then all of the other things that you have to do to keep yourself accountable, right? Like paying attention to, are we going to be able to monetize this? Is this something that we can do long term? Do we like, what equipment do we have to get? How much does everything cost? Like, what are the expectations? How are we going to organize ourselves? All of that stuff becomes like the fun, easy things that you do just to get the big project off the ground. So I feel like accountability is a lot easier than people think, but we first have to make sure that whatever project we're like about to launch is something we actually really, really care about, right? Does that make sense?
yes, absolutely. I love that you said that, because yeah, it's following through to do the things that we said we're going to do. So why don't we follow through and do the things that we're going to say we're going to do? I think about when I was running a big organization, people would come to me and ask me to hold them accountable, right, for their sales goals and their income. Frankly, that was their income, their money to feed their family. And those people were typically the ones that wouldn't follow through. And so to me, I had to ask them, why do you want accountability from me? Like, what does that mean to you? Does that mean you come sit in my office every day and you go, well, I didn't hit my goals every week, so you're grounded, or I smack you on the hand? Like, what does that mean to you? To me, the accountability should be that you didn't deliver for the people back at home that you said you were going to deliver to. That should mean way more to you than sitting in my office going, oh, I didn't follow through what I was going to say I was going to do. And I think that's where people get a misconception of what it really means to be accountable. Accountability is to ourselves. It's not to anybody else. Really, when I listened to those definitions, what I took away from that is you're just lying to me when you come to me and say, hey, I'm going to do this, and then I don't follow through. Well, now you're just lying.
Right.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people know that it sounds good. It sounds good to say, I want to be held accountable for this, or I want to hold someone else accountable. And that's hard. That is so difficult, because we were talking about this before the show. We want to do what we want to do.
Exactly.
When it comes down to it, and I'm making that decision, I want to do what I want to do in this moment. And it doesn't matter that I've asked you to hold me accountable, or if I'm not ready, there's nothing that you can do or nothing that you can say. I was talking about that with the gym. It's just like, I paid for a personal trainer to hold me accountable to these goals that I said I wanted to meet, until such time as I was like, no, I don't want to do all of those things that you're saying I'm going to have to do, for as long as you're saying I'm going to have to do them. In order to reach these goals, I needed to wait until I was actually ready for that. And I took the steps at the time. But it sounds really good. Everyone is talking about it. And, even Denise was saying, hey, it is something that's important in life and in business. And it is, but you have to be in that right mindset.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And I think if we go to the root of it all, we realize that when you go to someone and you say, I want you to hold me accountable, what you're saying is like, I want to hire you, or I want whatever the situation is, but I want you to make me do something I don't really want to do. Because let's face it, if you really wanted to do it, nobody would need to wake you up in the morning and be like, you have to go to school today. Like if you really cared about taking an extra class because you were really passionate about a certain subject, you would set 3 alarms to make sure you got up in the morning, right? But we all go back to doing things the way we always did them, right? And our training began when we were children. So from our first breath until 8 or 9 years old, all of how we know how to do things comes from our parents. And all the things we never wanted to do, we only did it because we had parents that were like, no, you have to do it. And we were like, no, I don't want to. And they're like, that's a great story, but you're doing it anyway. And so we learned, so it's a learned behavior of like, oh, that's how you do things you don't want to do. You find someone that makes you do what you don't want to do. But the point you brought up is perfect, because when it comes down to it, your parents are gonna make you do something when they're not looking. You're gonna do whatever the heck you want to do, right? And the same thing with a personal trainer or a coach. I can't tell you how many times people have called me and said, I want you to hold me accountable, Mr. Accountability, for this, and I'll pay whatever it takes for you to make me do what I don't want to do. But that's a waste of your money and a waste of my time, because if you don't really want to do it, you're just going to stop doing it. You're going to show up late to our calls, or you're going to miss our calls, or you're going to come up with a ton of excuses of why it didn't work out the way you said it was supposed to work out, And ultimately, if we just have a conversation about what do you really want to do? Like, are you building this business because you're trying to prove to your mom or your dad that you're worth, that you have, you're worth their love or their attention or whatever, right? Then that's different than like, oh my God, sneakers are my passion, and all I really ever want to do is like hang out with sneakers and sell sneakers and buy sneakers, then it takes doing it for other people off the table, and then you just always know what to do. Accountability just comes naturally. It's not something that needs to be forced.
Agreed.
Yes, I love that. I love that when you talked about that, from our parents telling us what to do. I never looked at it from that perspective. I love that. It makes me also think about our conversation prior when we had talked about we're naturally going to be drawn towards things we want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love that because I think that's the hardest thing for people is to stop being in the habit of doing what to do.
Yeah. All right. So I saw a couple of comments. The question from Denise is, I'm curious, do you think accountability has become an overused word when there aren't consequences? Yeah. Yeah. And I think we give mixed messages too. We say that we're going to hold someone accountable, or, and I think about even as parents, you were talking about that. And, we are supposed to hold our children accountable. But what happens is they learn that, it just takes 3 times and then mom's going to give up, or dad's going to, they're going to have this argument. They start learning how to, just maneuver the system instead of us holding them accountable to what we're saying. This is what's going to happen. If there aren't any consequences, then yeah, you're wasting your breath, really, in my opinion. But what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're all repeating what we've learned from our own training program, right? And so I think we're at an interesting time where we're all becoming more conscious, and we're looking at the big picture, and we're looking at, it's like, while we see that there's so much more opportunity now and people can make more money than they've ever made before, and you can build, massive businesses in short amount of times, and you could achieve success and a lot of money, you also have to look at, okay, well, at the end of the day, are these people happier? Are these people feeling more fulfilled? Are they sleeping better? Are they enjoying their relationships more? And a lot of the times, that's not always the case. So we have to look at the bigger picture, and we have to broaden our awareness and say, well, yeah, it'd be great to build a big business, but we have to take into consideration how that's going to affect my lifestyle and the people that are around me, and when it comes down to it, is the word itself, accountability, overused? Yeah, it's definitely a buzzword. But I think, again, we don't really need to be held accountable if we can get to what we're really passionate about. Try stopping somebody that's really excited about a project.
Yeah.
You can't, right? Like, you have to run after them just to have conversations with them. It's far different from taking anybody and trying to push them into doing something they don't want to do. It's exhausting. And eventually that person will find the right excuse to get you to leave them alone, and they might make something successful one day, but it probably won't be that, whatever that thing is that they're giving up on.
Yeah. And this comment from De Facto
we should
Books,
just do whatever we want to do. We should just do whatever we want to do all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It reminds me of that comedian. I think it was Sinbad. He'd say, "Be fat, be happy," right? Right?
I mean, I'll tell you, it's a challenge for me as a parent of 4 kids, right? Because I don't want to be a hypocrite. And this is what I tell people all the time. And I have to be the same way with my kids. So I've seen it in real world context. Like, okay, if dad's going to say you should only do the things that you want to do, well, then I can't force them to do things that I don't want them to do. It's very interesting. And I have to be so comfortable in my own skin that even if they do nothing for, let's just say, a couple of weeks or a month, I'm making this up, but that I need to just be like, that's okay. It's just okay. They're figuring something out, or maybe they need a little bit of downtime. See, I feel like in the past, and this really is, people are waking up to this, in the past, children were just an extension of their parents, so like the level of success or how well you did in school or with your job or whatever, it just said a lot about how good the parents were, like it was all tied to that. And so we have to ask ourselves how much of them holding their kids accountable was for the reason that if they achieve a certain level of success or complete a project in a certain way, then it's going to look better on them. Right? Like, are we willing to allow our children or our employees the autonomy to, like, drop the ball a little bit and feel what that feels like within themselves, and, hold themselves accountable, if that's something that they want to do, as opposed to somebody else making them do something that they don't want to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I wish I would have heard this from you 20 years ago. To be honest
Me
with
too.
you, and to see now, I'm just really thinking about, like, gosh, was I constantly that parent that was just pushing my kid? And I would have to say I probably was, because I was constantly, especially when he was growing up, I was a single parent, I was constantly pushing myself. And the other day he had said something like, well, I don't know what you want from me for something. And I said, hey, I just want you to be happy. Whatever you want to do with your life, as long as you're happy, I'm good. And for him to say that to me kind of took me away back a little bit, like, whoa, like, your life isn't for me. Your life is for you and what makes you happy, not me.
Wow.
So that's interesting to be bringing up kids from that perspective. I don't know if I could be the patient, Mark.
Well, Natalie, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to have received it.
Very true.
20 years ago, you would have just been like, no, okay, I think I know what's best for my kid.
I would have, for sure. And I would have fought you if you told me otherwise.
It is interesting. And I know even now, I think I want to bring up the comment from De Facto Books, because they said it's not lying to yourself. It means not lying to yourself.
That's
and
right.
I completely agree with that, because you know inherently exactly what you want to do, how you want to do it. That's why you engage other people, because you're not ready to fully accept. So you're taking that step that really looks good. You know that it's necessary, but we've already discussed that's not going to work. It really does come back to, when am I ready to face this decision that I've already made?
Right.
Or when am I ready to change the way that I am?
Right.
So it does require that truth and transparency within yourself.
Right. Yeah, I think that it's like a cousin of integrity, right? So integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's looking, right? And just being honest. And I think that's a big part of this, what we're talking about, because, like for me, for my own personal story and my own journey, it was, I was really trying to understand spirituality, because I had lost my girlfriend in the World Trade Center. And so I had to sort through all that. I suffered from anxiety and depression. And as a result of that, I had to get to the bottom of why I felt the way that I did. And I was trying to understand more about awareness and consciousness and where I fit into the big, piece of the puzzle. And when you study, enough spiritual books, spiritual texts, a lot of them boil down to the same context, which is love. Like it's all about loving ourselves and loving other people, and unconditional love and compassion, right? You're probably also. And my biggest struggle was that I wanted to be loving, I wanted to be compassionate, and all of that, but people pissed me off. Like I was just triggered all over the place.
Mark's in New York, in case you don't know.
Yeah, people just pissed me off. And the thing is, like, I wasn't really changing. I was just getting better at hiding. You know what I mean? So what I mean is that I want to be spiritual. I want to be evolved. I want to come across as this type of a person, but I was still being triggered by people, right? And so for me, the accountability part was like, after a while, I just got to the point where I was like, okay, this is my whole life. This is what I study. This is what I talk about. This is what I coach about. But still, I have relationships that are really struggling, right? Like in my circle, there's relationships that are not going the way that I want to go. And that's where the accountability and that's where the honesty comes in, right? Because I got to a point where I was like, I really need to figure this out. I really need to understand why people trigger me the way that they trigger me. I want to be compassionate. And that's what I did. And I took 6 months of my life, and this was within the past year, and I found a mentor to work with, and I really dove into understanding what happened to me in my past and with my childhood trauma and stuff like that, trying to make sense out of it, making peace with it, healing those parts of me that were not okay, and allowing myself to sit in whatever emotional state came up in that process. Because that's another thing too, was that I ignored my emotions all the time, because that you just got to, sweep it under the carpet, pretend everything's fine. Like, don't talk about it. Just put on a brave face and keep, marching forward. And what I learned was, no, you have to sit in your emotions sometimes, because there's a message in that emotion, and you have to stick around long enough to get that message. And the message was that I needed to heal those parts of me. And you know what the byproduct of healing those parts of me that were not okay was? Love and compassion.
Yeah.
So I got there, but it wasn't until I was honest about the fact that I was pretending to be a certain type of a person because I had read all the books. I wasn't that type of person.
Well, it seemed it changed when you started giving love and compassion to yourself.
100%. Yeah. And the starting point to that was understanding why I didn't like myself. And being honest with myself that I didn't like myself. Because when I started allowing myself to feel the way that I felt, I also allowed myself to hear those things that I wouldn't let myself hear. And I was like, whoa, what's that voice that says those nasty things to me? Like, where does that come from? I'm trying to love myself, but who's saying that? Because it sounds like me. It's coming through my own voice in my head. So when did that start? And then I had like dove deep into that and realized, oh, that was just stuff that I adopted, from a long time ago. So I had to change that relationship that I had with myself. And yeah, that was a big part of it. And all of that, when we fix all of that, by the way, then forget about accountability and like having, needing somebody to make you do something you don't want to do. You become so much more passionate about life in general, and you accept people for who they are, and you give so much more grace to people. You know what I'm saying? And, things just work out easier.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I think true. That's the real work.
I had the opposite issue. I loved myself too much. I know that's hard to believe, y'all.
I can't wait to hear this, Jana.
No, I know that's so hard for y'all to believe. If you're listening out there, that I would have loved myself. But really, it was that same process of going through and recognizing, just the pride that was within me that wasn't allowing me to have grace for anyone else. It was, I was so self-centered and I couldn't learn from anyone. And it was really just, finally God speaking into me and just saying, hey, his grace was sufficient for me. Right. And so it was just allowing that to flow through to other people. But it did start with me recognizing that within myself and saying, okay, I've got to change because I do want to be more loving. I do want to be compassionate. I do want to get back to that space that I was where there was a lot more peace, but it took going through so much trauma to get to that point where it was just like sitting still for a moment and saying, okay, God, what do you have for me in this moment? What do I need to do? And just allowing myself to, again, feel grace for how I've been treating people, for how I've been treating myself, and the position that I'd elevated myself in my mind to, and just coming back down and just saying, okay, oh yeah, I need grace. Other people do as well. Right. But it was a transformation but it started with that honest conversation that said, yeah, I don't like this part about me.
Right. Yeah. And it's a defense mechanism, right? And it works. So when you talk about, shutting everybody out and like, I know better than everybody and I don't know, that's a defense mechanism because we've been hurt. And so there's a part of us that steps up and is like, don't worry, you're not going to get hurt anymore. I know how to keep people away from you. So you're good, but that's not sustainable, right? Because then you get to a point where you're just like living in a bubble, right? Or people, without you even realizing it, you're controlling everybody around you. Because even if you have a smile on your face, they know like, okay, I'm going to keep my distance. I know what to say and how to behave when I'm around her. It looks good from a distance, but when you get real close, you're like, ooh, something's not right here.
It's so weird. It's like you were around me.
I get that a lot.
Oh, good gracious. This has been amazing. Mark, thank you so much for just the wisdom and, just that understanding and the knowledge and just your transparency and vulnerability. It was it's much needed because it gives people, they realize they can be vulnerable too. And it does take that. It does take that as well as just the truth, not lying to yourself, as De Facto said, it's going to be all right.
Right. Well, thank you for both for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and it went by too fast, so we have to do this.
Yes, we do.
We definitely will, Mark. We definitely will. And if you didn't connect with Denise, she was on here tonight, so make sure you guys connect. She's all in the chat. But yes, you can learn more about Mark at markchabas.com. I'm going to assume his podcast information is on there. If not, it's This Is Source. I see it, I think, on Facebook and Instagram. I think I follow you on both. You always get the little, lives where you can go back and see them. Awesome information. One of the things I really like about Mark's is he gets a little bit, we'll call it deeper on subjects that we do. We like to say we're more in business. Mark gets a little bit deeper in the weeds. It's like dessert over there. So, but it's a good time. I think I cried on the last one they did. But so anyways, Mark, thank you so much for being here. We have season 5, which I cannot believe, which will be starting on the 7th next month on the 7th. I'm excited about it. We've been this is a season of Show Me the Money, people. Like, I can't stop laughing about it. Today I was thinking, I'm like, Jerry Maguire, Show Me the Money. I was telling Shannon, because we're going to have even more grant information for you.
Yes.
We're working with some grant writers. I'm really trying hard to get us a Better Your Business Show grant. Shannon's getting some stuff done behind the scenes for that. So we're really working on that. Just more opportunities for you guys to get money. I'm going to be talking a lot about how to create passive income. And the mindset in doing so. That we talked a lot about accountability, habits, discipline, behaviors for that. And then Fitzroy obviously is going to bring you guys some more of tech stuff that's going to help you better your business. So we're excited about it. Thank you everyone who's joined us tonight. Thank you, Mark, for being here. Shanna, thank you just for being awesome, as you always are. Appreciate you so much. And we hope that you guys have a great, we'll see you guys in 3 weeks. Wow, Shanna, we missed each other after 2 weeks. I don't know what it's going to be like after 3, but everybody did something today.
Forever.
I know, right? Do something today that will help you better your business. We love you guys, and we will see you soon.
Our goal is simple: to help you achieve the dream and vision you first had when you thought about starting a business. We're here to make growing your business less complicated. There are building blocks to build a sustainable business. We promise to seek them out and address them all. The Better Your Business Show starts now.